All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Sunday, April 24th, 2022, and I hope everybody had a great weekend so far. So the futures market just opened not too long ago. It's about 8:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here in New York City. So let's have a quick peek at the futures. If we look at the S&P 500 E-mini futures contract, that is ticker symbol ES, we're down about 21 points to 4,245. If we flip over here to the YM, or ticker symbol YM, that is the Dow Jones Industrial Average futures contract, we're down about 150 points to 33,574. And then lastly, or last but not least, let's flip over to the NQs, or the NASDAQ 100 futures. That's down about 71 points. So futures are down across the board. I think this is going to be a make or break week for the stock market. And the reason why I say that is because this is the week for earnings. We have all of the mega cap tech stocks reporting earnings. And if we understand, the S&P 500 is a market capitalization weighted index. So if we talk about Apple, that's going to be reporting earnings. If we talk about Microsoft, Alphabet, Google, all of these stocks make up a majority of the weighting in the S&P 500, and we are already sitting well below the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average. So if we get a big miss across the board this earnings season, we could be seeing some blood in the streets. Let's take a quick look at crude oil futures, and then I'll check to see who's in the chat. Ticker symbol CL. Crude is holding steady at about $100, down about $1.68. But we are right outside of the Seagram Building tonight, folks. And let's check who we have in the chat. I see Tyree says, hey, Tom, good to see you, Tyree. Rodrigo says, hey, good evening. Good to see you. Vinny Castellano, the one and only, says, good evening, my friend. Hope you had a great weekend. I did. Thank you, Vinny Castellano. I wish the same for you. Colin Watt says, hi. Corey says, hey. War Walker says, hey, my friend Tom, how are you? I'm doing fantastic. Ricardo says, hello from Portugal. Chris Beeman, the one and only from Arizona, says, what a nice surprise, Tom. Good to see you, Chris, from Arizona. I see GGMYC. Says, fountains are so beautiful and relaxing. I agree. Eugene is here. Colin Otto says, hello. Good to see you, Otto. Leonardo. Ken Kramer says, nice view at the Seagram Building. Yeah, so everybody. I see Helen. Welcome. Faith is here, the one and only. So let's get on with the stream. Let me put away my laptop. But for all of those of you who are wondering, this is actually my favorite building in all of New York City. So this is the Seagram Building. The exact address is 375 Park Avenue. Now, this is my favorite building in New York for a couple of reasons. I think the biggest reason is I think it has the best view of any building from a street level perspective in New York City. Because if you look very closely, and then we'll jump into some of our financial topics, the building is built really, really far away from the street, right? So if you see, the main entrance to the office is right here, but look at this unbelievable view that you get when you walk out of the office building. Fantastic. And I think the reason why the view is so great is because the building is built well a ways from the street. Tyree says, Tom, thoughts on bonds? Well, bonds are getting crushed. So if we think about bonds, they move in an inverse correlation to yields. So as of right now, we are seeing yields go gangbusters, right? So we're watching that 10-year U.S. Treasury yield. I think this week is going to be the week where we see that 10-year U.S. Treasury break 3% for the first time in a long, long time. So as yields go up, bond prices go down. So bonds are definitely getting hit here. Ibrahim Azam says, I am here. Good to see you, Ibrahim. The one and only Faith, good to see you. Water Blazing is here. Good to see you. So, Eyeglass Lady says, good Sunday evening, Tom. Hey, Eyeglass Lady, good to see you. War Walkers, Bagels and Walks is a beautiful New York City view. Cheers and stay safe. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. So everybody, I actually spent the majority of the day in Central Park, and boy, was it an unbelievably beautiful day in Central Park. So I am going to be posting some standalone walking videos showcasing the absolutely gorgeous cherry blossoms in Central Park. So today was a gorgeous day in New York, fantastic day. So stay tuned for that. I did just want to mention really quickly, thank you everybody who's been reading the Behind the Street newsletter. We just broke above 850 readers. So thank you everybody for reading the Behind the Street newsletter. And if you want to sign up, if you type !news, NEWS, in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link where you could sign up for free, and I'll send you the newsletter every single week. The Aviators is, what time is it right now in Manhattan? So I think it's right around 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. So futures are down across the board, everybody. Market's falling under a little bit of pressure here. And I think today is going to be an especially volatile week on Wall Street. And the reason for that is because the main stocks that are the most important in the indice are reporting earnings. So in my view, Alphabet, or parent company Google, Alphabet, however you want to call it, I think is going to be the most important to pay attention to this earnings season. So Alphabet, ticker symbol GOOGL, reports Q1 earnings on April 26th after the bell. The majority of analysts on Wall Street are expecting earnings per share, or EPS, to fall about 2% to $25.66 a share, while revenue is seen increasing 23% to $68.1 billion. Now, as I was reading through some of the analyst reports, the main focus that everybody is sort of keyed into is digital ad sales in their search department, or their search business. So they think that digital advertising in their search is expected to be a pretty big bright spot. However, you guys know me, and I've been saying this ad nauseum. I think the number one thing to look for anytime that Alphabet reports earnings, the number one thing to look for anytime Microsoft reports earnings, and yes, last but not least, the number one thing to look for whenever Amazon reports earnings is the Amazon AWS cloud service revenue. So as we know, AWS is really the leader in cloud computing, then followed right behind Microsoft's Azure platform. So I think the star of the show, in my view anyway, that is up for debate on Wall Street, when Google reports its Q1 earnings, we have to pay very, very close attention to their Google Cloud unit to see if that is on the right track to becoming profitable. Now, I believe last quarter, Google's Google Cloud platform lost about $600 million, but the good news is that consistently they are losing less and less money every time. So this building right here is one of the most famous buildings in New York City on Billionaires Row. It's called 432 Park Avenue. And I believe one of the units in the building actually just sold for about $80 million. I think it's in contract right now for about $80 million. Hey, Sinjib is here. Good to see you, Sinjib. I hope you're doing well. Gregory is here. Says good evening. Good to see you, Gregory. I see Shadow Ship is here. Good to see you, Shadow Ship. Well, I really hope everybody had a good weekend. I pretty much enjoyed my time walking around Central Park, traveling back to New York City, but got to get back to business. We got to get back to business. Monday calls us tomorrow, and so does earnings season. So let's take a little bit of a walk around Midtown. I do want to stop into Grand Central Station briefly, but we are now walking down Park Avenue, so I'll show you guys the KPMG building. We're also going to pass Blackstone. We actually did a little bit of a deep dive last stream on Blackstone's earnings. Hey, Roy S. is Tom. Looking forward to the Cherry Blossom video. Yeah, Roy. So I was walking around Central Park today, and it was absolutely fantastic. So check out the view of the Seagram building from here. Hey, XOXX Bob is here. Good to see you, Bob. Ibrahim Azam says, I have school tomorrow. My spring break is almost over. Yikes. Well, I guess you have the summer vacation to look forward to, right? Matthew P. says, hello, Tom. Good to see you, old chap. Matthew, always a pleasure. Sanjib says, hey, Tom, how are you? Montreal is doing well. Awesome, Sanjib. Roy S. says, the sky is very nice. Yeah, no clouds in the sky tonight. And we have a beautiful view of the Seagram building. Eugene Bean says, Tom, where are you walking to tonight? So we are going to be walking around Park Avenue. Up and down Park. We may be able to make our way over to Central Park South, which is one of my favorite places in the city. Furcho says, hello, Tom. Very cool. Hello from Ecuador. Good to see you. The Aviator is here. This is a pretty good weekend. Went to the beach yesterday. Of course, not as enjoyable as Miami, like it is in Washington. Just stayed home all day. Very cool. Love that. Love that. Diego is here. Good to see you, Diego. All right, so let's continue on our walk. We are going to head southbound on Park Avenue. We are right now on East 52nd Street, but we are going to be walking down to the one and only Grand Central Station. We may actually take a walk through the inside of Grand Central tonight. But aside from Google's earnings, everybody, we are going to hear from Facebook, or I guess as we could call them, Meta. I guess, what do you call it now? Facebook's parent company, Meta? So ticker symbol FB, or Facebook, is reporting earnings on Wednesday. So we're probably going to have a big deep dive into Facebook's earnings, or Meta's earnings, on Wednesday. The majority of analysts that were surveyed are going to say that EPS, or earnings per share, is supposedly supposed to fall 22% to about $2.58 a share. But revenue, here's what surprised me. The majority of analysts on the street are expecting a revenue decline, or deceleration in revenue, of about 8% to $28.3 billion. But, here is where I think Meta, or Facebook, and the guys over there that is at the lead of the head of Zuckerberg, they're really putting all of their bet into virtual reality, or VR. I believe their main product is called the Quest headset. But if we think about, and I was reading a couple reports from a lot of the market research companies out there, a lot of the market research companies actually say the biggest total addressable market is not in virtual reality, but in augmented reality. So it's interesting that Facebook is literally betting their entire company on virtual reality as opposed to augmented reality. And the reason why I say this is because, as I was doing some research, because Apple is reporting earnings this week, as well as Microsoft. Microsoft and Apple are supposedly, this is all alleged information, they're supposedly coming out with their own offerings in augmented reality. And, Tim Cook, I respect a lot. And Tim Cook is the CEO of Apple. And very seldom does that guy make mistakes, in all honesty. Really, Apple tends to get pretty much everything right. So if we understand the fact that Microsoft and Apple are making all of their bets in augmented reality as opposed to virtual reality, what does that mean for Meta? What does that mean for Meta? So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Mark Zuckerberg, check out this sculpture here. Do you guys think that Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook are making a big mistake by putting all their eggs in this metaverse basket, by investing pretty much all of their manpower and their brain power into VR as opposed to AR? And if you want to know the main difference between virtual reality and augmented reality, essentially virtual reality, let's say if you put on the Quest headset that Facebook is betting on, that essentially will transform or transcend you into a 3D digital world. Essentially what they're trying to do is disrupt traditional two-dimensional websites into more immersive 3D worlds. But if you think about an Apple glasses or a Google glasses or something like that, that's what you call augmented reality, where it's sort of like a supplement to your senses in the physical world. So maybe it'll drop a physical overlay of some data in front of your field of vision, as opposed to transforming or transcending you to an actual virtual world to begin with, right? So let's say if I put on, the brand new Apple glasses that are allegedly supposed to come out, maybe I wear the glasses, I'm still walking up and down Park Avenue, but on the top right corner of my peripheral vision, I'll see weather updates. I'll be able to see, how far away, my destination is. Things like that. So it's sort of like projecting in your field of vision is more augmented reality as opposed to a full virtual reality experience. But I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. The Aviator says, Tom, I definitely prefer AR instead. While AR is a lot cooler, Seeing the real world is better. Agreed. I agree with that. So essentially, Aviator, what you're saying is virtual reality, you lose touch of the human experience, maybe. Interesting. Life, Liberty, and Guns says, good evening, Tom. Missed you in New York City. Hope you had a good trip in Florida. Hey, thank you so much. Life, Liberty, and Guns. Solo 401 says, most of you barely know life before Facebook and the internet. You know, Solo 401, you're very right on that. A lot of us youngsters have grew up in this internet age. Hey, Jeff W277 says, that would have been useful 30 minutes ago. I was running outside when a monsoon started. Oh my God. Well, Jeff, hopefully you got warm and dry. And I see the one and only Ruby Falcone says, good evening, Tom. Good to see you, Ruby. Always good to see you. Check out the beautiful architecture on this church. Dutchman says, good evening, buddy. Good to see you, Dutchman. Hope everything is well with you. Ron is here. Good to see you, Ron. And Daryl is here. Says, hello, Tom, from Chicago, Illinois. Good to see you. Faith says, Metaverse 3D. You have Roy S. says, I prefer real reality. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat saying that they're actually against all this metaverse stuff. Very fascinating. The Mighty Bull says, where? Good to see you, Mighty Bull. Welcome. Eugene says, I heard it's going to be renamed to the MetaQuest 2 or something like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. So I was reading an article about it, and supposedly the holiday retail sales really gave a big push to the VR headset or the Quest headset of Facebook. But I mean, honestly, I'm not really too sure if that's going to catch on. But I never really want to say never, right? But I couldn't see myself going out and buying a headset that I put on and just interact in virtual worlds. Now, I think that'll catch on to some extent, but I think I'm more along the lines of the camp of Microsoft and Apple when they're making their big bets on augmented reality to sort of supplement the real user experience as opposed to a full transition to a virtual world in a metaverse. Now, I could be wrong, but then again, I think Facebook or Meta is really making this big push to being a complete and total metaverse company to potentially help attract those specific developers that want an inclusive space to build products and services for the metaverse. So, who knows? Those are just my thoughts. Hey, Elliott Wave Review is here. This is Zuckerberg and Gates on a quest to ruin our lives, apparently. Jeez. Brad's Brain says, good evening all. Blew up my lawnmower today. Start paying an SVC or buy a new mower. Ooh. Brad, I say buy a new mower. So this is the Towers at Waldorf Astoria, brand new remodeled building here. And if you remember correctly, every time we walk around downtown Miami, in downtown Miami, they are building a brand new Waldorf Astoria residences, which is going to be the tallest residential building south of One World Trade Center. Hey, Robert Riley is here. Good to see you. Ibrahim Azam's Tom, I am okay with losing the human experience. Yeah, so maybe the new human experience is a digital one, perhaps. Hey, D is here. Good to see you. Jason X says, thoughts on Twitter board seriously considering Elon's $46 billion proposal? Yeah, so Jason, I think that's a good question. I think that Musk is probably going to pull it off. But if we talk about if we think Twitter's board is going to accept it or not, I mean, we've already heard from some of the board members that they don't want to accept it. They think that Elon Musk is sort of lowballing the company, which is just not true at all. I mean, Twitter has done such an egregious job of monetizing their platform. And I think we're actually going to hear more about that next week, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Twitter is also reporting earnings as well. I think they may report on the same day as Facebook or maybe the day after. I think Twitter reports earnings on Thursday, actually. And I think earnings per share are expected to come in at about 5 cents. Now, put it into perspective, this time last year, they earned about 16 cents. And they're expected to be a huge revenue drop. I think a 16% or 16 to 18% revenue drop to about $1.2 billion. So if we think about a traditional social media platform, hey, the mighty bull, I'm not sure if you're here. I guess this is considered a cow, not a bull. But if you think about like Twitter's competitors, right? Twitter is a competitor of Facebook, but Facebook does about $28 billion in quarterly revenue. 20 times what Twitter does. So, I mean, who do you think has done a better job at monetizing the platform? Probably Mark Zuckerberg. Hey, Mr. Fine Arts is here. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Hey, Jose Orlando Tejada is here. Says, hey, thanks for your videos. I'm going to New York in May, and your videos will help me not get lost and not have anxiety. Well, I'm looking forward to you coming to New York. I think that's going to be fantastic, and I think you're going to have a good time. Mr. Fine Arts is here. Good to see you. Jason X makes a good point. Says, Tom, users only have so much time on their hands. You're right. Drippy D says, how are you, bro? I'm doing really good. I'm doing very good. We are walking down Park Avenue, one of my favorite locations in the city. And I think this building right here, if you guys could see, is going to be JP Morgan Chase's brand new office. And this building is fantastic. So right here is supposedly going to be the brand new JP Morgan Chase office tower. Let's see what other comments we have in the chat. Prospect Basement says, Tom, I don't want a fully digital world. I want a physical world where technology is seamlessly integrated into daily life. Okay, so you're more along the lines of like an Apple and Microsoft. So not betting on virtual reality, but more of an augmented reality situation. Gregory says, Tom, Yahoo rejected Microsoft's $34 billion takeover bid in 2008. Now they are worth maybe 1/10 of that. Yeah, you're right. That's another crazy fact there. And you know, Gregory, I was watching an interview with Elon Musk, and supposedly Elon, during the early days of Tesla, was really trying to get a meeting with Apple's Tim Cook. And supposedly, allegedly, Tim Cook wouldn't even take the meeting. And supposedly at that meeting, Elon Musk wanted to sell Tesla to Apple. And isn't that so crazy that Tim Cook wouldn't even pay Elon Musk the time of day to take the meeting? And now Elon Musk is the wealthiest person in all of the world. Insane. Yeah, Al Berg, you're not wrong. So I think the majority of the revenue for VR is exactly what you're saying. As crazy and weird as that is, you're not wrong. You're actually 100% spot on there, Al Berg. Hey, Solo401 says he's kicking himself now. I know. Isn't that crazy? That just goes to show that everybody deals with rejection, not just regular ordinary people, but people like Elon Musk have to deal with rejection too. I guess it's just all how you deal with it. Could you imagine being Elon Musk back in the early days of Tesla, trying to get a meeting with Tim Cook, and Tim Cook not even taking the meeting, let alone not buying Apple? Let alone not buying Tesla. He wouldn't even take the guy's meeting. Crazy how the world works. Kind of crazy how the world works. Hey, fourth quarter is here. Good to see you. The Aviator says, I agree. I think most people will buy augmented reality products more just because of the slight difference from virtual reality and augmented reality, where you are able to see the real world. So, Aviator, I think I have to agree with your point of view there. Because if I'm thinking about it from a work perspective or a work application perspective, I do think that we will be taking meetings, quote unquote, in the metaverse, but I don't want to be containerized into one specific virtual world. And I feel like the way that Facebook and Meta is sort of structuring the business is sort of being too containerized, if that makes sense. But from an augmented reality standpoint, if I could put on, glasses or goggles, and then I could sort of have like little, I guess not little facts, but sort of like, maybe I could see the weather. I could see, how many more minutes until my next meeting. And maybe I could even watch, updates of the local news or something like that, or check stock prices right from my glasses. I think that's actually probably better. So I think I'm going to have to agree with you there. Wow, check out how beautiful these tulips are here. Al Berg says, any thoughts on Bill Gates' Tesla short? Yeah, so we were talking about that a little bit yesterday. So there is a big Twitter battle. So speaking of Twitter, Twitter has been a really, really hot topic as of late. So speaking of Twitter, not only is Elon Musk set up to make an offer to buy Twitter, but there's been an ongoing meme battle between CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates, because supposedly how all of this started is Bill Gates had reached out to Elon Musk to offer a sort of like to partner up in a deal to combat climate change. And Elon Musk is like, whoa. That's all good and that's all great. But it seems like you're being a little bit of a hypocrite here, because Tesla, which is my company, saying Elon Musk, is the number one company that has done more for climate change and has done more for the environment than any other company on earth. I think that's fair to say. And Bill Gates is supposedly pushing his narrative that he wants to get all into ESG investing, he wants to push his climate change narrative. Well, if that's the case, why would you bet against a company and short a company that is doing more for the environment than any other company in history? That's sort of my take on it, but I'd love to know what you guys think. The Aviator says, Tom, it's just like a heads-up display on cars. You can see the speed of the car without looking at the dashboard and losing the visibility of the road. Bingo, exactly. I think that would be cool to have something. I think down the road, the Aviator, maybe it would be cool to actually have like augmented reality contact lenses, perhaps. I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, Deese is beautiful. One of my favorite things about walking around New York City during the springtime is all of the cherry blossom trees, the plants are blooming, the flowers are blooming. It's really beautiful. Jose says, can you tell us where you are at right now? So we are on the corner of Park Avenue and I believe 52nd Street. Either 52nd or 49th, I believe. But check out this statue, everybody. This statue is called Cause. I actually used to have this same exact, I guess you could call it monument sculpture type deal in my old office. The only difference is that the one that was in my office was black. Dogman says, one can still like what Elon has done and also view Tesla as overvalued. Yeah, I do see your point, Dogman, there, but if you want to go up to, like, let's say me and you both had publicly traded companies, and you're like, hey, Tom, I think we should partner up and do something really good for the climate. And then I look on the books, I'm like, wait, you're short $500 billion worth of stock. I'm like, I'm not going to partner with you. I think there's a little bit of maybe petty bad blood there, especially if you're asking for a partnership. Hey, Thomas Brady is here. It says, hey, Tom, good to see you. Looks good tonight. Thank you so much, Thomas Brady. Thank you so much for joining. Marilyn says, it's not healthy to be connected to social media 7 times 24. We are humans. Social media and internet is a blessing and a curse. I don't want my life turning into an episode of Black Mirror, says Marilyn. Okay, so Marilyn, I think that would make you a part of the Apple and Microsoft club as opposed to the Meta club. Because if we're talking about virtual reality, that is literally transcending into a virtual world, which I think Meta Platforms is really betting on. And I would have to agree with you, Marilyn. Hey, Miami Walking and Driving Tours says, hey, Tom, great evening. It was epic to get to see the text interactions between Elon and Bill Gates. Agree, Tom? Talking out of both sides of his face there. Yeah, I agree with you. And here's another, this is why I love Twitter so much. I think if Twitter actually had a proper management team and was run by people that actually knew about technology, I think Twitter would probably have a larger market capitalization than Facebook. Because just think about the reach that you have on Twitter. Like, guys, like, think about this. We are literally watching in real time two of the world's most powerful people ever in the world fight it out in front of our eyes. We could actually see what they're saying. We could pretty much listen into all of their conversations. Think about any other time throughout history. Would that be possible? Think about, listening in on a call with the Rockefellers, right? Or the Henry Clay Fricks of the world. It wasn't possible. That was all sort of secret, skull and bones, closed door stuff. But now it's like, okay, let me roll out of bed, pop on Twitter, and let me see Elon Musk posting a bunch of memes about Bill Gates. I mean, it's almost surreal. It's almost like it's not even real. And I think if Twitter found a way to monetize, which I think is probably going to happen should Elon Musk take over the company, I would probably be long the stock. Long the stock. Yeah, Miami Walking and Driving Tours says, yes, Tom, and it's free. That's the crazy thing. Agreed. Anna is here, says, happy Sunday, not ready for Monday. Good to see you, Anna. Eyeglass Lady says, I have always had more traction on Twitter than on Facebook. Agreed. Cynthia Martinez says, why watch the news when you could have Tom and chat? Appreciate that, Cynthia Martinez. Much appreciated. Yeah, so think about it like this. So I was actually in a Twitter interaction last week with a person who is falsely accusing Bill Ackman of trying to manipulate the stock market. And I thought that was pretty disingenuous, so I sort of, posted a couple of statistics about why that is not true, why Bill Ackman was not manipulating stock prices. And Bill Ackman actually saw the tweet and liked a tweet, right? So if you think about it, if you're putting your content out into the world, you're putting your equity research out into the world, you never know who's looking. Like, could you imagine back in the 60s or the 70s, an independent person trying to put out their equity research, or an independent person trying to put out their artwork or anything, to have it be seen by some of the best people in finance? And that's just one example. It wouldn't be real. There's no way. So I think if you're having conversations on Twitter, right, or let's say if you're an artist and you're posting your artwork on Instagram, you never know who's going to see it. There could be, quite literally, billionaire hedge fund managers or billionaire technologists like Elon Musk and Bill Gates actually seeing your work, so you never know. JJ says, Twitter is not free. They make money from ads. I do Twitter ads for work. Yes, so JJ, so we understand that. I think what we're saying about, we don't have to pay to use the platform, right? Twitter obviously does make money from ads, but I think what we're saying is I don't physically have to sign up and pay $10 a month to use Twitter, right? So even though Twitter does make money from advertising, I still think they do a horrible, horrible job of monetizing. Because if we think about Twitter's earnings report that's actually going to come out on Thursday, the vast majority of analysts are actually seeing earnings decelerate to about 5 cents. This time last year, Twitter earned about 16 cents, and revenue is seen dropping 18% to $1.2 billion. Now, to your point, the vast majority of that $1.2 billion in revenue is from selling advertising. But let's compare that advertising revenue to like a Facebook or a Meta, right? I think Facebook is reporting Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's Wednesday. But even though their revenue is projected to be down about 8%, revenue is seen coming in at $28.3 billion, right? So Facebook, or Meta, I hate calling it Meta, but I guess I'll have to because of Mark Zuckerberg, has almost 20 times the revenue because they found out better ways to monetize. So I love Twitter. It is my preferred social media platform, actually. But I think they need new management. I really think they need new management. Hey, Holo Fuel, so such a nice night. Thank you so much, Holo Fuel. We are here at East 47th Street, everybody. Namaste is here, says, but Facebook and Instagram be selling your data. Yeah, I think a lot of companies, I think pretty much every company sells your data, right? I think we need to come to terms with that. I do understand the criticism, but I mean, let's be real. I mean, if anybody really wants to get anybody's personal information, we could pretty much get it, I think. Baki Shmuel says, walks from Wall Street, do you know why would Chase build a new skyscraper knowing that we are now working permanently hybrid work environment? So I think that's a good question. It probably had to do with a lot of tax implications, but also I think if you work in investment banking, I think Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, is probably going to make you come back to the office at some point. That's probably going to cause a lot of churn or employee turnover, but I think at some point they're going to bring people back to the office. At least that's the plan. Here, let me give you guys another shot of these beautiful tulips here on Park Avenue. Just amazing. Fantastic stuff. Really good stuff. Jeff says Meta is also expanding into New York City while becoming more lenient on remote and hybrid work. That is true. I think one of their main offices, Meta, is it in the Lord & Taylor building, or was that Amazon? I forget. FredX says, are you where Park Avenue begins? So we are directly in front of the MetLife building. And if you look to the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll actually be able to see the beautiful One Vanderbilt building. Ruby Falcone says, the colors of those tulips are beautiful. Yeah, Ruby, aren't they? So Ruby, I actually spent the majority of the day in Central Park. So this week I'm going to be uploading a standalone video of the absolutely gorgeous cherry blossoms in Central Park. It was almost unreal. I mean, you guys have to see this video, so please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And that cherry blossom video will be out very soon because Central Park is in full bloom, my friends, in full bloom. Hey, my one and only friend, Life, Liberty, and Guns, says Tom, Amazon is in the Lord & Taylor. Got it. I always get Amazon and Facebook confused because they're buying so much office space in New York City. But yeah, so for those of you who didn't know, in the Lord & Taylor building, which is probably one of the most famous buildings in New York City, once Lord & Taylor closed down, I believe Amazon just closed a pretty big deal to expand office space there. So a lot of Amazon employees will be moving into that building on 5th Avenue, which is actually pretty close to Bryant Park. Elliott Wave Reviews says, Tom, how do you feel about Bill Gates wanting everyone to go vegan and eat soy products? I'm not a big fan of that at all. I have my conspiracies about that, but I'll tell you via email. Savi says, love the cherry blossoms and tulips. Cynthia Beal says, the Hemsley building has a green top tonight. Well, speaking of Amazon, so everybody, just to quickly recap here, this is going to be a big make or break week on Wall Street. Pretty much, now that we have the financials out of the way, right? So earnings season usually kicks off with all of the major investment banks, financial firms reporting earnings. I think this week we have Visa and MasterCard, which I think you could probably consider them financials, but maybe more payment processors and fintech and things like that. But the reason why this week is so important is because if we think about the S&P 500, it is a market capitalization weighted index, which means the companies that have the largest market caps, such as Tesla, Microsoft, Alphabet, and Amazon, they are all reporting their quarterly results this week. So could you imagine if we get massive earnings misses across the board? I mean, this market could tank and tank fast. And the reason why I say that is because if we look at a chart or a weekly chart or a daily chart of the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, what we'll see is that all of these major indices are well below their 50-day and 200-day moving averages, with a lot of the mid-cap stocks and the smaller micro-cap stocks. These things are crushed down about 30 to 40% from all-time record highs. So knowing that, the stocks that are holding up or propping up the indices are the mega cap tech. So talking about Amazon, they are going to report Q1 earnings. But here's the thing. Many analysts on Wall Street are expecting about 47% earnings decline versus last year. And obviously, now that we're talking about Amazon, we really want to make sure we are honing in on that AWS cloud growth. They are the leader in the space, so we'll see if they're giving up any of their territory to Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud. And I was doing a little bit of research. I pulled their earnings report from last quarter, and a lot of Amazon's earnings last quarter actually did not come out of their cloud computing unit. It did not come out of their e-commerce sales. It actually came from their investments in Rivian, the EV or electric vehicle maker, Rivian. Because if we think about this time last year, or this quarter last year, Rivian stock, and I think it went public via SPAC or Special Purpose Acquisition Company, it was trading near all-time record highs. Now, I think it's at 52-week lows. So that's actually going to put more pressure on Amazon's earnings. So just wanted to give you guys a quick update on that. Amazon will be reporting, and obviously make sure you watch very, very closely the Amazon AWS Cloud Computing division of the company. Miami Walking and Driving Tours says, Tom, cloud numbers also give you a good idea of how other tech companies in general are doing. The better the cloud numbers, the better their clients are doing. That's a fantastic point. So Miami Walking and Driving Tours, I think that's the comment of the night. You're 100%. And this is why, as we're talking about earnings, I always like to try to position and tell everybody, this is why it's important to pay attention to financials, right? I don't pay attention to JP Morgan Chase's earnings because I like Jamie Dimon's haircut. Even though I really do like his haircut, the most important thing is JP Morgan Chase is one of the largest credit card issuers in the United States. And knowing that, we can find out a lot of data from that. So, point in case, Jamie Dimon on the earnings call said the vast majority of consumer spending on credit and debit cards is actually shifting away from traditional products to more services-based, to more travel. And we saw that play out perfectly when Delta and United reported earnings. I think it was the CEO of Delta actually came out on the earnings call and said consumers are not fared at all by the rising prices of airline tickets. They don't care. These people just want to get out and travel. They've been stuck inside. They've been having to deal with COVID for over two years now. They're willing to pay 50% more for an airline ticket if that means they could get out and travel. So I think that's a very, very good point there. So I think they just opened these brand new entrances to Grand Central Station. Beautiful here. Hey, I see Sabrina Fair. Good to see you, Sabrina. Always good to see you. Samantha R is here. Arum Z says, Tom, out of curiosity, who do you think is the best bank? I personally bank with JP Morgan Chase, but I find myself asking if I could be banking with someone else. So I'm going to have to agree with you. I think JP Morgan Chase is the best run bank. I think Jamie Dimon is the most trustworthy out of all those CEOs. Hey, Roy S says, yes, I think it's the new entrance for Grand Central Terminal. Good to see you, Roy. Maya says, good night. Good to see you, Maya. This is the beautiful entrance to the MetLife building. Sabrina Fair says, you could also bank with the credit union. That's true. Brad's Brain says, I spent $500 on 2 tickets to 2 places in the last 2 months. They are normally $300 tickets normally. Yeah, Brad. Yeah, so isn't that crazy? So think about that. And Brad, so I guess I'll ask you, since you commented on it, did that deter you in any way from future travel plans? Or were you just like, look, I've been on lockdown for 2 years. I'm going to spend the extra couple $100. It's not a big deal. Or sort of what were your thoughts around that, out of curiosity? Ollie Rogers says, hey, Tom, best private wealth bank. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more, Ollie. Yeah, Steve Buffalo says, I like Follow the Cloud. Indeed. Well, we're going to hear how the cloud computing units are doing from Microsoft, Microsoft's Azure cloud unit. Hold on, let me make sure we're not going to get clocked by a car. We are going to hear from Amazon's AWS, and then Google's Google Cloud Computing Unit. Al Berg says, Tom, inflation has caused prices to go up. Yeah, and I think that probably crude oil sitting above $100 a barrel also is causing the price increases too. VSS Nabs is best European IB bank. Deutsche Bank. Just kidding. Just kidding for all my friends who work at Deutsche Bank. Local CA2 says, hey Tom, good to see you. Arum Z says, Tom, what is the best credit card overall in your opinion? So I'm not a big fan of credit cards, to be totally honest, but if I had to choose one, so I am trying out the Gemini credit card from Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss. They are the founders and owners of Gemini, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, and they actually just came out with their own credit card partnering with MasterCard. So every time you spend money on that credit card, you can actually earn rewards or cash back in Bitcoin. So I'm actually trying that out, and I promised to write a review of that card in the next issue of the Behind the Street newsletter, which will be coming out next week. Also, in this week's edition of Behind the Street, we are going to talk about beta weighting a little bit. So a lot of times I'll get questions or comments, and somebody actually sent me a really, really good report from Bank of America about beta weighting. So if you guys want to sign up free of charge to my free financial newsletter that I send out every single week, if you type !news, NEWS, in the chat, the Nightbot will drop the link to the Behind the Street newsletter. And that is where we expand upon the ideas that we talk about in the chat on the streams. So we'll do a quick recap of Microsoft's earnings, Amazon, all the big players. We'll cover that in the Behind the Street newsletter. So this is the Yale Club, and sometimes, speaking of Amazon, this is actually where Jeff Bezos comes to hang out sometimes, right here outside of the Yale Club. Arum Z says, but Tom, AWS is the main powerhouse. Indeed they are. Indeed they are. Arum Z says, Tom, Google Cloud has made some significant strides as a cloud provider, in my opinion, as an ML engineer. Yeah, so Arum Z, I think you're right. So here's the thing that's fascinating about Google's cloud computing unit. Every single quarter, all the analysts on Wall Street that know nothing about technology start to bash Alphabet and Google and say, oh, I told you they're losing money, the cloud computing unit's losing money, they lost $600 million. I'm like, guys, I understand they're losing money, but if you look at the numbers, they're losing less and less money every single earnings report. So could you imagine, once Google's cloud computing unit turns profitable, all of that revenue is going to hit the bottom line. And if you think about it, right now, I think EPS, or earnings per share, is sitting at about $25 a share, at least for Q1. I mean, could you imagine the moment that Google Cloud turns profitable? I mean, it's fantastic. Gregory says, Tom, I like the Google collab, but the free version is pretty slow now. Paperspace is much faster. Interesting perspective there. Interesting, Gregory. I'm a big fan of Microsoft Azure, to be honest. But I think I have my reasons for that. FredX, good to see you. Hey, Brad's Brain says, Tom, I actually traveled. Did my decision when it's too far to drive, but I did actually drive to Nashville rather than fly because of the pricing. Wow. So it was actually cheaper for you to drive to Nashville as opposed to fly, even with the gas prices. Interesting. Charlie Richardson says, hi, everybody. Good to see you, Charlie, as always. So now we are looking at the one and only One Vanderbilt Building, one of my favorite buildings in the city. Yeah, Gregory says Azure is nice too. Arum's East is my old job, used Azure, and it has its pros. Some good UI for certain ML applications, like load balancing. Yes, exactly. So I'm not sure if you remember when I was doing the 24-hour skateboarding streams, I was actually running that off of Oracle Cloud, because Oracle has a free cloud, but then my friend let me actually borrow one of his servers on on Azure, and I was actually running the 24-hour stream on Azure. Hey, Charlie Richardson says, try to make myself familiar with all different cloud computing platforms. Good to see you, Charlie. So this is why I like to highlight these particular companies during earnings. And one of the main reasons is not just from an investing standpoint. I think, we all want to make money from investing, right? But I think the biggest overarching theme here is that from a career standpoint, especially if you're young, you want to make sure that you are setting yourself up to apply for the appropriate companies that are in a growing or expanding industry, right? And so in the investment world, we call this an expanding TAM, TAM, which stands for Total Addressable Market. So not only if you pay attention to companies' earnings reports, you could find America's best and brightest companies from an investment standpoint, but also maybe these are the type of companies you want to work for. Because I'll give you a quick example. Let's say Zscaler, right? Zscaler is a cybersecurity company, ticker symbol ZS. They're growing their revenues at least 50% quarter over quarter. Well, isn't that probably a company you may want to apply to work for, especially if you're in sales? Knowing that a company is consistently growing their revenues quarter over quarter at a double-digit pace, well, you probably can make a pretty good bet that the salespeople at that particular company are making a pretty good living, right? But let's say on the other hand, on the other side, I guess you could say on the other hand, if you're looking at a company that's in structural decline, so not to pick on IBM here, but we will, look at IBM's revenues over the past 8 to 10 years. They've actually been stagnating or declining. So do you think it's been a hard time or an easy time to be a sales representative at IBM? Now, I know IBM is very famous for their big base salaries, but I would much rather want to work for a tech company or a software company or even a hardware company that is consistently growing its revenues consistently quarter over quarter. So whenever I talk about earnings, let's not only think about earnings from a perspective of, let's buy the stock, but potentially, what are your career paths looking like? Make sure you pay attention to these companies. Vinny Castellano says, I guess Tom doesn't know. Good to see you, Vinny. Yeah, Vinny, I did hear about what happened. That's horrible, horrible, horrible what happened. I just don't really want to bring too much attention to it because usually that type of stuff provokes additional attacks. So I don't really want to make that public. But Vinny, it's absolutely horrible what happened, man. I apologize, and I'm actually writing you an email about it too. Tom Conway says, a while ago you visited a building that on the outside had that moving artwork. You never told us what the building was. I'm not even too sure I know what the building is. I don't really remember. Was that in Miami or was that in New York? Arum's East says, Tom, the only good thing about AWS isn't the difference from Azure. The one good thing that AWS isn't that different from Azure and GCP, I advise us to learn AWS since it's the most used and then learn others when you need to. That's a very good piece of advice. Cindy Foley, good to see you. All right, so everybody, since it's Sunday night, I'll leave it up to you guys. So we are overlooking the beautiful Grand Central Terminal and the Chrysler Building. So do you guys want to do a quick lap around the inside of Grand Central Terminal, or should we head to the Salesforce Tower? FredEx says don't mess with our Vinny. Agreed. Yeah, I mean, for somebody to do that, that's so egregiously horrible. I don't really want to talk about it because usually the people who do that, those type of things, are looking for attention, and I don't want to bring any attention to that. All right, yes, we will. Okay, go inside. All right, we'll take one quick lap around Grand Central Terminal, and then we'll head out. Somebody says I'm taking notes. Awesome, thank you. I could finally put my hood down. So I always have my hood up because my ears get freezing whenever we stream in New York because the wind is out of this world. But let's see who we have in the chat. We have Al Berg. Good to see you, Al. Santo, welcome. Jose. William St. Charles, good to see you. All right, we'll do one lap around the inside of Grand Central, and then we will make our way to Mark Benioff's building, Salesforce Tower, ticker symbol CM or CRM. Hey, Ron Bowe is here. Says hello. Good to see you, Ron. Hope you're doing well. So if you look straight ahead, you could see the Apple Store here in Grand Central Station. And I think, just briefly touching on earnings, I think one of the biggest questions that is going to come up on Amazon's conference call is all of this talk about unionization. So I think today in Staten Island, I actually think it was one of the main warehouses in Staten Island that the vast majority of employees actually voted to unionize. And I think even Bernie Sanders is in town in Staten Island today helping out with the unionization effort of Amazon. Now, I'm not going to give my opinion on whether that's right or wrong. I don't think that's what the stream is about. But from an investment standpoint, I think it's very, very important to pay attention to, because we're seeing this big, big push towards unionization, not only at big tech companies like Amazon, but just look at what's happening with Starbucks, right? Ticker symbol SBUX. I think that's one of the main reasons why Howard Schultz is coming back to sort of lead Starbucks as chief executive officer, is because supposedly, ever since Kevin Johnson took over, and Kevin Johnson is actually not a coffee industry executive, he actually came over from Microsoft. So Kevin Johnson was the previous CEO of Starbucks. He came over from Microsoft, but I think he was actually a pretty good CEO, and I'll tell you why. Because I think the overall value proposition of a company like Starbucks used to be the quote-unquote third place from home, right? So you would go to the office, you would go home, and then you have a third place, which is Starbucks, where you can go and hang out, have conversations, meet coworkers, and meet people. But ever since the pandemic, I think you sort of needed a culture change, right? So I think ever since Kevin Johnson came in, the number one thing that he focused on was mobile order and pay. And I think that any company that doesn't make strides to become a tech company or a technology company is going to get disrupted. So I think Kevin Johnson actually did a really, really good job with mobile order and pay. But I think now that Howard Schultz is back in the realm, I think it's going to be a little bit of a shift more on employee benefits, maybe increasing employee salaries, whether that be hourly or salaried employee, and potentially even increasing some of the stock purchase program. Yeah, Dogman says Starbucks can't compete with Luckin. So Luckin Coffee turned out to be a big fraud. And I think that's one of the other reasons why it's very risky to invest in Chinese equities. But I love the joke there, Dogman. Love that. Matthew Carducci says, hey, Tom, how old are you and what is your net worth? Love that question. I'm 26 years old and I will not disclose my exact net worth. Patricia Ivory says, good evening, Tom. Good to see you, Patricia. Hope you're well. So everybody, we are now inside Grand Central Terminal. Very beautiful, very quiet in here tonight. Batman 800 XL says hi, dude. Good to see you, Batman. William Kaiser is here. Hey, the Mighty Bull. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. Much appreciated. This is the house of the Mighty Bull. So if we look at the ceiling here, we'll actually see the one and only Mighty Bull. So everybody, I know I show this every time, but I'm going to zoom in on this little teeny speck here at the top right-hand corner of your screen. If you'll notice, it is a very, very small black rectangle. And that's actually what the ceiling used to look like back in the day when everybody was allowed to smoke and do other things in Grand Central Station. So you can see how filthy Grand Central Station used to be when you were allowed to smoke and do other things in the station. So they left that little piece there unclean just to show everybody the stark contrast between what it was then and what it is now. Hey, Jay says, hey, Tom, still in the office? Thought I'd say hi. What's up, Jay? Good to see you. Always a pleasure to have you here, Jay. Sabrina Fair, good to see you. Estelle, good to see you, Estelle. So Estelle is joining us from Australia. Says, hi, Tom, how are you? I was reading about that building today. Very cool. Very, very cool. Good to see you, Estelle. Jose says, I never knew that about the ceiling. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, Fred X is like, well, Tom's net worth just went up by $5. Appreciate that, Mighty Bull. Much appreciated.
Attention customers. A reminder, proper wearing of a mask.
Dieter says, did you study anything today? I read the Investors Business Daily and Barron's today. I sort of took the day to relax. Very seldom do I relax. But today I sort of hung out. I was reading a lot. And I filmed some standalone videos in Central Park. Ron Bo's like, not after taxes. So true. Hey, Tom Conway says, what's for dinner tonight? So I actually went to one of my favorite soup dumpling places. So the type of the soup is called malatang. And it is actually a very famous Chinese spicy soup. And I actually went there. And it's right next to the Seagram Building, which is my favorite building in all of New York City. Hey, Silent is here. Says, what's up, man? Good to see you. Yogi says, Miami rubbing off on you. Good to see you, Yogi. Techno Pink is here. Says, hello, my friend. Techno Pink. Hope you're well. Techno Pink is joining us from the one and only Dominican Republic. Always good to see you, Techno Pink. So usually Grand Central Station is a little bit more busy on a Sunday night because everybody is coming back into the city from upstate New York on their golf outings and everything like that, coming back to the city for Monday's workday. Elliot Wave Reviews says, hey Tom, do you watch European soccer? What is your favorite team? Very seldom do I watch it anymore, but I think Manchester United is my favorite team. I think they actually just played Arsenal, didn't they, this weekend? Jose says, who is from the Dominican Republic? Our friend Techno Pink is from the Dominican Republic. And he's also a fellow management consultant at EY. So good to see you. But if you guys are enjoying tonight's live stream of the Markets a Look Ahead and the recap of earnings, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll give you guys one more look at Grand Central from this angle so you can see the American flag. Hey, Jose says, I'm also from the Dominican Republic. Very cool. So everybody, now that we pretty much talked about the vast majority of the mega cap tech stocks that are going to be reporting earnings this week, I do need to just give a little bit of a preface here. and say that we are going to be hearing from ExxonMobil and Chevron. They are both going to report this week, and analysts are expecting extremely strong earnings reports out of both ticker symbol XOM and ticker symbol CVX, which is Chevron and ExxonMobil. And that's pretty much because crude oil is well over $100 a barrel. I think the last time we checked the price of crude oil was just before we started streaming, and we were trading at about $102 a barrel on that ticker symbol CL. And here's what I'm interested in looking at this earnings season with ExxonMobil and Chevron. I think the number one thing to look at this earnings season is the forecast for demand in summer travel. So as we know, as we make our way into the summer travel season, people are planning road trips, people are planning to visit their family. COVID is finally dying down in New York City and across the country. Will these higher oil prices put a cap on demand, or are consumers just so fed up with being cooped up in the house, are they just going to plan a road trip anyway? So what do you guys think? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Hey everybody, it's our good friend Ebitda. What's up? Ebitda, this is Tom. I own both of those two. Earnings will be amazing. They have great balance sheet. They have great dividend yields, tons of cash. Agreed. Ebitda, hope you're having a good one. Yeah, so Ebitda, I do not have exposure to those two names. I guess I do indirectly via the indices, right? I do own the S&P 500. But in my actively managed accounts, I am not long either ExxonMobil or Chevron. I really don't want to style drift here. I feel like if I move away, I'm pretty much about 80% cash now that I've been stopped out since the last follow-through day. But Ebitda, we were talking about this week is going to be a make or break week for the stock market because you have Alphabet reporting, which we covered earlier in the stream. You have Microsoft, which we reported earlier in the stream, Apple. So pretty much all the companies that make up the vast majority of the indice are reporting earnings. Oh, this guy, I don't like that guy. Who make up the vast majority of the indice are reporting earnings. So could you imagine if we have big earnings misses across the board? You know, this market could, this market could crack the lows. And I think we may do that on the S&P 500 this week, but we will have to see. Hey, Matthew says, well, Tom, I'm 43 and have a liquid net worth of $700,000. Hey, congratulations, dude. That's freaking awesome. I invested in ETFs and index funds in Vanguard as well as the workplace IRA. We will see how the future market prevails. You know, that is, well, number one, congratulations on your success. It's fantastic. And I think you're going about it the right way, right? You're taking advantage of your employer match, whether that be in a 401k or IRA. And it seems like you've done a really good job with dollar cost averaging into the major indices. So to your point, I think the main person who really pioneered indexing on Wall Street is Jack Bogle or John Bogle. So if you read the Little Book of Common Sense Investing, that book essentially outlines that the vast majority of money managers on Wall Street do not outperform the index. So knowing that, Jack Bogle says that a vast majority of your wealth or your net worth should probably just be dollar cost averaged into the S&P 500. Now, I do agree with that, but if you ever want to generate alpha, and alpha is an industry term that essentially means any sort of outperformance over the benchmark, if you ever want to generate any type of alpha, you do need to manage a little bit of money on your own to try to make that outperformance. But I agree. I have a very, very large portion of my net worth that is just indexed to the S&P 500. And I think that's a fantastic job that you did. Love it. Hey, Omar Martinez, welcome. This is Miami, is the Bitcoin capital of the world. So everybody, here is the Salesforce Tower, Mark Benioff's building. And then right here we have our pal Ebitda in the Steven Schwartzman building. Good to see you. Al Berg says, Tom, do you trade options? Very seldom do I trade options. The only time I ever dive into the derivatives market is if I'm hedging a position. Ed T says, hi Tom, like always, I love the views and the discussion. Well, thank you, Ed T, for being here. Love that. Ebitda is like, Tom, his name is John Bogle. You are right, he created the first index fund. Sabrina Fair, good to see you. Jose says, well, since we are talking about investing, binary market is more than way to throw your money. I'm not too sure what you're talking about. Jose, could you rephrase the question a little bit? Miami walking and driving tours, good to see you. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of questions and comments about CNN Plus. Yeah, CNN Plus is a big failure. But then again, I don't think they gave it enough time. But I think it was mainly because of... I'm just getting a call here. I think it was mainly because of the merger with Discovery and Warner Brother Media, and I think that just the company's being pulled in a million different directions. But they are shutting down CNN Plus for good. You're right. Hey, Vinny Castellano says, Tom, Maria Castellano wants to know if you're going to Little Italy this week. We will be going to Little Italy. We will. So Maria, good to see you. Thank you for being here. Captain Super says, Tom, what's the best Vanguard ETF right now? So I don't know if you could say which one is the best or which one's not. I guess what is the definition of the best, right? Because there's a ton of ETFs. There's a ton of exchange traded funds out there. I think the number one thing that you need to look for in terms of like an ETF is make sure that the expense ratio and the management fees are not egregious. Because oftentimes what will happen is people will say, oh, this ETF has a really cool name. It's going to invest into a bunch of green technologies. And they'll buy it not knowing that it's going to charge you a 2% management fee every year, which is called the expense ratio. So if you're new to investing, I would really read that book, The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by Jack Bogle or John Bogle. And that'll really give you a clear sort of perspective on what an index fund really is. Hey, Wei Zhang is here again. What's up, man? Thank you for coming back for a second time. This is SPY and IWM are my favorites. 80% of all I trade. Yeah, so the spiders are very liquid, very low expense ratios, and to your point, a lot of traders use the spiders or the S&P 500 SPY to trade options on. Hey, Wasabi says, Tom, what's your take on this Disney debacle? So I'm not going to give my political take on it tonight. I think it's going to make the chat off the rails. But I will say I think it's a big non-issue. I think it's just like a big political game, which I'm not really interested in, just to be very blunt. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. I think the media is making it out to be a bigger deal than it actually is, because in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that big of a deal from a tax implication standpoint. But they just will formulate their own narratives based upon which politician they like the best, and not really interested in that. But it is a big debacle, man. It's been insane. Paul says, crypto or stock market? I think you should have exposure to both. Hey, NE Parrot 77 says, nice Bank of America tower. Yeah, this is Ebitda's company right here. Wei Zhang says, yep, liquidity of their options are the reason why I trade them. Very cool. Perry Willix says, I love the library's architecture. I mean, the media is sort of making it out to seem like, oh my gosh, I won't get it. I won't get into it. But in my opinion, in my view, it's like a big non-issue. And it's not even really going to, it's probably not even going to materialize because it has to be voted upon. I don't even think it's going to materialize. Kim says, so beautiful. Good to see you, Kim. I hope you're well. I'll give you guys a nice close-up of one of the lions here. Hey, Al Berg says, have a good friend that works at Bank of America, and he says it's a great company. Indeed it is. Great company. Hey, Atomic Skittles 678 says the only downside to the Disney issue is that the residents in the area will have to pay $1 billion in taxes. Yeah, so that's what they're saying. Everything's just a big money pit. It just goes into a void anyway. But I do see what you're saying 100%. All right, everybody. It is time for a quick water break, my friends. Hey, James says, hi, Tom. I'm in New York. I'm in New York now. I ran the Brooklyn Marathon today. Dude, congratulations, man. 13.1 miles is not an easy task, James. So you should be proud of yourself. That's fantastic. And congratulations on your success, my friend. But everybody, if you scan really quick the QR code on your screen, I am going to send everybody the Behind the Street newsletter where I do an in-depth analysis on not only the U.S. equities markets, but on emerging markets, on cryptocurrencies. So if you like what we're talking about tonight and you want a little bit more detail on what I think about the financial markets, please scan the QR code and punch in your email. It is completely free, and I'll sign you up for the Behind the Street newsletter that I write every single week to about 850 investors. So thank you all for the support. And just let me get a drink of water, and then we will head all the way up to Rockefeller Center. All right, we are good. Jose says just subscribed. Appreciate it, Jose. You are too kind. YouTuber says that's not true. The residents will not have to pay $1 billion in taxes. Stop reporting fake news. Yeah, that's the reason why I don't really want to get into it right now, YouTuber, is that's what I said. But yeah, I'm not really interested in the Disney thing. Not to be... it's just going to get too political. It's going to get too toxic, and I hate politics. John K., good to see you. ALH is the Russell 5000 small cap stocks. Likes bad or are under a lot of pressure. Indeed they are. Hey, Miami Walking and Driving Tours says, love the reading and coffee gif on the landing page. Thank you so much. All right, so everybody, let's head towards one of my favorite places in all of New York City, which is Rockefeller Center, 30 Rock. Sabrina Ferris is very quiet tonight. Yeah, usually on Sundays it tends to be a little bit more quiet because everybody is preparing for the week ahead. Warwalker, yes, I see. Tom, can you give a wrench to the Dutchman? Okay, hold on, I'll do it. Let me see. All right. Al Berg says, will you pass Bryant Park? Yes, so I think we're passing Bryant Park right now. So this is 42nd Street, Bryant Park. But we are going to make a left on 42nd Street. and walk all the way down to Bank of America Tower. And then we're going to head up to the one and only 30 Rock, Rockefeller Center. But before that, I want to show you guys the beautiful view of not only the Chrysler Building here, but the One Vanderbilt. Hey, Sabrina Fair, good to see you. John Case, it's good to see you, Tom. Thank you. John, always a pleasure to see you as well. Lisa says, Tom, have you ever considered streaming on the water cruise around Manhattan? So we have, but the only thing is I always tend to stream really late at night. So I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. Maybe one time on the weekends, maybe like a Saturday. Hey, Skylar Myers says, hi, good evening. If you get the chance, can you check out Bryant Park? Between the cherry blossoms and the 30,000 tulips? Yes. So we'll see if the park is open. You know, the park may be closed tonight. Or we may just make it in time. I'm not sure if the park is closed. Hey, DWG is joining us from Canada. Good to see you. Hope you're well. Hey, Wabi says, Tom, do you feel that this Elon/Twitter, Vanguard/Twitter chatter is just a bunch of hype? Well, I think we're going to find out this week, right? Because not only is Meta Platforms or Facebook reporting earnings, Twitter's reporting earnings too, and they're probably going to get a ton of questions about the whole takeover. So I do want to dedicate an entire stream to that. And I think that's going to be on Thursday. So Thursday is when Twitter reports earnings. It's probably going to be a really, really horrible quarter too for the company. But I really do think that Elon Musk wants to make a big impact to Twitter. And I think he will. I think that, you know, Twitter has just done a horrible job of monetizing the platform. And I think that shows in the results. So here we are at Bryant Park, everybody. One of my favorite spots in New York City. Hey, Urban Myths is which high apartment neighborhood with good price rent would you suggest? I would suggest the Upper West Side of Manhattan. I love the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Hey, Phyllis here says, and that will be the day I leave Twitter. Good to see you, Phil. You know, Phil, to your point, I really do like Twitter. I think Twitter is one of my favorite social media platforms. I think it's really good to connect with a lot of people. I think you can connect with more people than you think on Twitter. It just seems like people are more accessible on Twitter as opposed to Facebook, right? You know, if you post on somebody's Facebook page, the probability of them getting back to you is probably slim to none. But if you @ somebody on Twitter, they're probably either going to like your tweet or get back to you. But check out, everybody, the lawn at Bryant Park. This lawn looks absolutely beautiful here. But if you guys want to connect with us on Twitter, that is where I post the majority of my equity research and thoughts about enterprise tech sales. You could follow us at Walks Wall Street on Twitter. Once again, that is at Walks Wall Street on Twitter, and I'd love to connect and talk with all of you on Twitter. Yes, so Phil, you're right. It says companies definitely respond faster on Twitter. I agree with that. I agree. Yeah, Yogi's the same on YouTube. So this building right here is the Bank of America Tower. One of my favorites. Hey, Pond Viewer 12 says, Tom, are you going to be back in Miami for the Formula One racing on May 8th. I'm not too sure. I'm going to call that tentative. I'm not 100%. Yeah, John says that's the new lawn, and it is beautiful. Agreed. Hey, Kim says beautiful lawn. Yeah, so to your point, Jeff, this is where the ice skating rink used to be, or as they like to call it, the Winter Village. But just look at how beautiful the lawn, it's like immaculate. And I think we were actually streaming the day that they rolled out this lawn at Bryant Park. They literally rolled it out. So it comes in like these big, big, thick pieces of sod that they roll out on the lawn. Hey, Kim, thank you so much for the $2 donation. You are way too kind, and I appreciate you very, very much, Kim. And thank you for the support. Much appreciated. And now we are looking at the Bank of America Tower, the Salesforce Tower, and right in the middle there, you could actually see a little bit of the H&M building. So I think just another quick thing about, and I know we covered a lot today. We're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. We pretty much covered all the major tech companies, but I think aside from that, one of the most important sectors of this economy, the vast majority of those companies are reporting earnings this week, and that is the semiconductor companies. So the two biggest companies that I'm watching tonight I'm watching this week is Intel, ticker symbol INTC, and ticker symbol QCOM or Qualcomm. These are two major semiconductor stocks that are reporting earnings, and I think the number one thing we really, really have to pay attention to this earnings season in relation to semiconductor companies is verbiage and a potential signal from a lot of these CEOs as to if major companies that they're selling to are starting to stockpile up on inventory, and I'll tell you why. If we start to see inventories of semiconductors pile up, that means, and we're about to exit here because the security guard is going to yell at us. But if we start to see inventory pile up here, that could mean a little bit of pressure on sales in the next coming quarters. So, and that also may mean a little bit of declines for those particular. This way? Awesome. Thanks, man. Have a good night. So what I was saying is, if we have reports from Qualcomm or Intel that say, hey, a lot of the semiconductors that we did. Oh, right here? Thanks, man. Have a good one. If we start to see a lot of the verbiage that says, yes, a lot of our customers overbought semiconductors and chips because they thought there was going to be massive, massive shortages, and now there's really no need to purchase additional orders. That could put further pressure on these semiconductor stocks. So that is just one thing I wanted to mention. During Intel's earnings report, watch for a lot of the analysts on Wall Street to ask those questions about piling inventories. And that may mean that supply is now exceeding demand in the semiconductor sector. Hey, Lupe, thank you so much for the $10 donation. You are way too kind. Much appreciated, Lupe. And Lupe is our great moderator from the one and only Oklahoma. So much appreciated, Lupe. You are way too kind to me and the chat. Hey, parking full time, says Tom. A silly question. Why does the park close at 10 o'clock? I'm not sure. I think that they just want to limit people sleeping in the park and things like that, which I understand. But anytime somebody tells us to do something, we usually kind of just do it. I really want to avoid the confrontation there. But at least we got to see a little bit of Bryant Park. Hey, Dilbert says Mets versus Yankees makes you feel like you live in the Big Apple. Did the Mets play the Yankees today? I didn't know that. Techno Pink says, what is the H&M Tower is so popular? Is it a clothing store? Well, I think in the bottom, there's a clothing store, H&M, for sure, yeah. And here's one of my favorite buildings in the city. Our pal Mark Benioff. Right here, Salesforce Tower. You know, but it's almost sat completely empty ever since the pandemic. Because the vast majority of the workers at Salesforce have the ability to work remote. Waze says, I see CRM, yeah. Yeah, I'll give you guys another look at it and the Empire State Building. Hey, Pineapple Water, what's up? Says, do you know why Musk was trolling Gates? Yeah, so I think the main reason why Elon Musk, and we sort of talked about this a little bit earlier in the stream, but I think it's pretty good to cover it again, because supposedly Bill Gates had approached Elon Musk and was offering Elon Musk the opportunity to team up on a climate change effort. And, you know, at face value, I think that's actually pretty good, right? Two billionaires coming together to make a pretty good impact on climate change. But Elon Musk finds out that Bill Gates has a $500 million short position on Tesla, and he gets his feelings hurt. And I think I'm on team Elon Musk here, because think about it like this. Could you imagine if you're Bill Gates and you're supposedly all into the environmental and social governance, you want to save the planet, you want to be a big hero, you want to be a big shot, and then at the same time, you're like, yeah, I want to save the environment, but the one company in the world that is doing the most to positively impact the environment, I'm going to outright short the stock. Like, what sort of message is that signaling? I mean, to me, that's signaling that you're just trying to capitalize on an opportunity to make money and not actually put forward the agenda you supposedly support, right? I mean, Bill Gates, do you really need to make an extra $1 billion on shorting Tesla? I mean, couldn't your time be way better addressed doing something else, like actually helping with climate change as opposed to shorting Tesla, which is the single-handedly the number one company that's trying to combat it? I don't know. That's my little rant about that, but I think it was just a little bit disingenuous from Bill Gates. So I think the trolling was warranted by Elon Musk. But, you know, enough about me. What do you guys think? Are you guys on team Elon Musk or are you on team Bill Gates? Because I think it comes off as a little bit disingenuous, in my view. War Walkers like we like your rants. Hey, Ken Glass is here. Says, good evening, Tom. I hope for a better week. Well, thank you so much, Ken. Emilio J says, I don't like either of them. Yeah, Miami Walking and Driving Tours, you're right. It says, by the way, Bill Gates had shorted going back to when Elon Musk was on Joe Rogan. You're right. FredX is team Elon here. Elon might end up evil. Gates is currently full evil. Oh my God. I mean, I don't know if I go that far, but definitely respect the opinion, 100%, FredX. TJO says team Elon. Lodi says, I'm usually always team Elon. So it seems like the vast majority of the Walks in Wall Street chat is team Elon. Very interesting. I'm actually team Elon as well. Jay says, I'm on Team America, so you're on Team Elon as well? Just kidding. No, but I mean, to be honest, like if we're thinking about, okay, is it petty to say I'm on Team Elon or Team Bill Gates? I mean, my take is that if you're a billionaire and you're really trying to push everybody to be a big climate activist and be an ESG activist, I mean, at least don't go short the one company that is doing the most to save the environment. I mean, that just seems a little bit sociopathic, but I digress. And yes, Tesla may be overvalued, but do you really need to capitalize on that when you're Bill Gates and you're one of the richest people alive? I don't know. Hey, Chaser says, I'm team both. Ollie Rogers says, if Bill Gates invested $1 billion in Tesla 10 years ago, he'd have the same number of shares as Elon Musk now. Very interesting. Ooh, NMAT, yikes. That is true. Hey, Daryl is here. Good to see you, Daryl. NMB045 says, Tom, the underlying game between them is that Elon is anti-censorship and Gates is pro-censorship. Ah, okay, interesting. Very interesting there. Hey, Steve from Buffalo says, Tom, little known fact is that Rockefeller Center is the world's largest privately owned complex. I did not know that. Is that true? Wow. Very cool. Troy 1995 says the NASDAQ. Yes, we are outside of the NASDAQ. So I think last time we checked, the NQ, which is the ticker symbol for the NASDAQ 100 futures, was down about 75 points. Now, I'm not sure where futures are trading right now because we've been streaming for about 2 hours. But last time we checked, the NASDAQ 100 futures were down about 55 points. The S&P 500 E-mini futures contract, ticker symbol ES, was also down about 12 points. And the Dow is down about 157, I believe. Hey, photos from around New York. It's like you just arrived. Good to see you. So photos from around New York. We covered a lot already on the stream. I think we are making good time here. We covered all the major companies reporting earnings. Essentially all the major mega cap tech stocks are reporting. And now that the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, and Dow Jones Industrial Average are all sitting well below their 200 and 50-day moving average, my fear is that if Alphabet or Google or Microsoft, Amazon, if they miss their earnings reports, we could have an extreme sell-off in this stock market. So let's pray for an earnings beat across the board, because if not, I think this market is going to get clocked. And the reason for that is because the vast majority of small and mid-cap and micro-cap stocks are already down well over 50% from all-time highs. And sort of the last soldiers standing are these big mega-cap tech stocks. Hey, Sabrina Ferris here, Atomic Skittles, good to see you. T. Walsh says SQQQ. Yeah, so the SQs are the QQQs are the NASDAQ. The SQs are a little bit of a leveraged product there. Hey, Yogi says, Tom, I didn't realize the NASDAQ was sitting right at Times Square. So in that NASDAQ building, there used to be the Stock Market Today live show by Investors Business Daily. I do not think it's there anymore. I think they moved it back to Los Angeles. But sometimes I would watch it right there. Hey, Namaste says, remember when Elon sold $20,000 flamethrowers? I do remember that. That was insane. Photos from around New York says, when you said the 10 and 2s had an inverted yield curve, didn't that predict the downturn in the economy? Yeah, so what Photos from around New York is talking about is the yield curve. So if we want to talk about the bond market, I always say if you want to know where the stock market is going, don't pay attention to the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or the Dow Jones Industrial Average. It's more important to pay attention to the debt market, because the bond market is a derivative, or the stock market is a derivative of the debt market or the bond market, which means the prices of equities derive their value from the bond market. So what do I mean by that? If we think about what a bond is, bonds move inversely, or they're inversely correlated between their rates and the price of the asset. So for example, that 10-year US Treasury yield has been selling off, so the price has been going down, but the yield has been going up. So there's an inverse correlation there. So banks, if you think about a regular financial institution, they tend to, hold on, let me make my way past here. They tend to lend at specific parts of the yield curve and borrow money at specific parts of the yield curve. So when you have longer term dated bonds now yielding less than shorter term dated bonds, that usually signals a recession within the next 12 to 18 months. So the main point of the curve to be watched is that 10-year Treasury yield and the 2-year Treasury. Fades, so are you bullish on the S&P 500? So my market sentiment right now is about at a 3. My short-term trend is at about a 3. So I'm a little bit bearish on the stock market right now. But I think this week in earnings is really going to decide whether we are going to come out of this correction or not. But if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts on the stock market, if you type !news, NEWS in the chat, !news, NEWS in the chat, I'll send you a free financial newsletter that I write every single week, covering not only the stock market, but also the bond market, the cryptocurrency markets, fixed incomes markets, currency markets, everything. I'll send it to you for free every single week. So type !news, NEWS in the chat, and click the link that the Nightbot drops in the chat. Punch in your email and you'll get the free newsletter to stay up to date on all of my thoughts on the market. But let's make our way through Times Square here. I'm surprised I'm even in Times Square. Hey, Leah is here. Good to see you, Leah. You know, it seems like there's a lot of tourists back in the city now. Faith is like I don't see Spider-Man yet. So coming up on your right-hand corner is the Express store. I actually used to work here when I was a teenager. I used to stock the shelves at this store called Express, right here. Hey, Hunter Butler says, yo, Tom, I'm a block away from you, headed to the train. Hunter, what's up, man? It's good to hear from you. I hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend, my friend. So I used to work right in here when I was in college. I would go right in here, this store. Robert says you worked in Times Square. Yeah, I actually used to work the crazy shift from 9 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning. So I would come in at 9 o'clock at night, and I would leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would stock all the shelves right in this store at Express. Hey, Captain Supers. I worked in the Brill Building, 1619 Broadway years ago at the production house. Very cool. Yeah, this was one of my teenage jobs I had. Hey, Kim says, Tom, was it busy in Times Square at 3 o'clock in the morning? You know, it actually was, not gonna lie. So everybody, talking about big investment banks, this is the Barclays building, which is a major investment bank on Wall Street. Hey, Bottomless Coffee says the subway was probably $2.25 back then or less. It was, you're right. Hey, Out and About is here. Good to see Out and About. So Out and About is our great moderator from the one and only Toronto. Good to see you. So now that we're in Times Square, if you notice, we are seeing a ton of tourists, right? So the majority of people in Times Square are probably not from the United States. They're probably not from New York. So how does this sort of tie into the financial markets? Well, I think one of the main ways it does is we heard from the CEO of Delta, which is Ed Bastian. We heard from him last week, and he said that travel is more, or travel for more people was a bigger priority after the past 2 years of putting travel off because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So even though Ed is raising prices of airfares at Delta, he is saying that none of his customers are giving any pushback at all to all of these egregious price hikes in airfares. Because what he is saying, he's like, look, people have been sitting home for 2 years. People have been watching Netflix in their basement and, you know, sleeping with their masks for 2 years. People are sick of it. They want to go out. They want to travel. They want to have a good time. So Delta actually beat earnings, and they raised expectations for sales and earnings estimates for the entire fiscal year. And I think from standing in Times Square, we could probably say that he's probably 100% right. Look at all these people. This is probably back to pandemic or pre-pandemic levels. So hearing from Delta, the CEO of Delta, hearing from the CEO of United, according to them, consumers are not deterred by the increased prices of airfare at all. And we're not only seeing this in airfare, we're seeing this in hotel prices, we're seeing this in the prices of rental cars. You're seeing a pretty significant shift coming out of goods and retail to experiences and services. So as opposed to spending money on a streaming platform and other goods, people would want to spend that money on traveling and experiences. And one of those experiences is right here in Times Square. Hey, Penelope is joining us. Good to see you. Penelope is joining us from Tennessee. Welcome. NMAT says, Tom, it sounds like more money in the CEO's pockets. Yeah, that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. 8444 says, hey, I'm walking here. Good to see you. Hey, XOXX Bob, welcome. Hey, Brad's Brain says, I don't think that will hold true, Tom. I think in general this inflation is going to catch up to people. You know, I think I'm leaning towards agreeing with you, Brad, but to be honest, I've been so caught off guard, in my view. Just the sheer strength of the U.S. consumer, it's almost not even to be believed. And we heard from all the major investment banks, all the major financial institutions last week And at the vast majority of the largest credit card issuers and debit card issuers in the country, they're saying exactly that. They're saying consumers are shifting their behavior away from traditional goods to more services-based and more travel. And that showed up exactly in the airlines. So I'll give you guys one more shot of the red steps here, and then we will make our way back to the one and only Radio City Music Hall in 30 Rock. Hey, oh my, says I was just in Times Square 5 hours ago. What's up? Hope you had a good time. Cindy Foley, good to see you. So should I be deterred? I'm not sure. Hey, Cove Creek 3 says Tennessee loves the NYPD. We love the NYPD too. Thank you so much. What Was says it is a good time to visit New York City. I think it is a good time to visit New York City. I think the better time to visit is probably in June when it gets a little bit warmer. Right now it is springtime, but I think it's going to get a lot warmer. So if you like walking around in high heat, definitely would wait till June to do that. Yeah, Ken Glass says, Tom, it's all consumer money in the bank from stimulus. That's true. And I mean, if we think about stimulus, right, not just, sending people $1,200 checks, we could talk about the Federal Reserve not only buying U.S. mortgage-backed securities, but also U.S. Treasuries too, which essentially puts pressure on those yields, suppressing rates artificially and allowing consumers to borrow essentially for free, assuming that the CPI rate is about probably 7.9%. If you could borrow money sub 5%, you're pretty much getting the money for free, right? NMAT says ban the feds. So here we have the Morgan Stanley building, the very famous Morgan Stanley building right here in Times Square, another major investment bank. Hey, Brad's Brains says we have raised prices multiple times to keep up with the costs, and I think we're getting to the threshold of sales. Wow. Very good insight there. So, Brad, you think we're going to reach sort of an inflection point here? Very interesting. Hey, Danielle Rodriguez is here. Good to see you. Hey, Tom M is here. Says crypto thieves get bolder by the he's stealing record amounts. Hacker steals 182 million over the weekend, the 5th largest hack. I did hear about that. Hey, Daniel G from Buenos Aires, Argentina is joining us. Says, hey, Tom, good to see you, Daniel G. Lisa White 123 says, Tom, will there be another stimulus check? I don't think so. In my opinion, I really don't think so. But Daniel G, good to see you. Hope you're well. We were just talking about inflation, and inflation is really a big problem in Argentina, unfortunately. I think inflation is running at about 20% in Argentina. But Lisa White 123, it's good to see you. Robert Wiley, good to see you, my friend. And Jared Covey, what's up, Jared? Brad's Brains has got to run, guys. Newsletter tomorrow, Tom. So the newsletter will be sent out on Tuesday after the market close. So if you guys want to stay up to date, feel free to type !news, N-E-W-S, in the chat. And the Nightbot will drop the link to the Behind the Street newsletter. Here, I'll give you guys the QR code and then we'll head up, because I want to make sure we get to see the Rockefeller Center. So here is the QR code. If you scan the QR code, it'll bring you to the Behind the Street newsletter where you could sign up for free. I send everybody an investing newsletter every single Tuesday after the market closes. We would love for you to be a part of it. So feel free to scan the QR code and we'll send it out to you. But now we are going to head to Rockefeller Center, 30 Rock. Hey, 844, thank you so much. Says New York City looks beautiful through the lens of your camera. Thank you. Jay says, do you think that there's going to be a correction of 15% or more? I think that the S&P 500 will break the lows. But I think it's really going to be determined this week by the mega cap tech stocks reporting earnings. But I will give my exact thoughts in the newsletter. But I think especially for Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin could have a final flush down to its 200-day moving average. But then again, I think Bitcoin still has a pretty precise correlation to the NASDAQ, which essentially signals that it is a risk-on asset. I think that correlation will decouple over the next coming years. But I mean, my eyes and my focus are on Microsoft, Apple, which is reporting earnings, and all the major cloud computing companies like AWS, Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, and the like. All right, everybody, so we are now passing the M&M store here in Times Square, which is on West 48th Street. Yeah, Tom M, that's a very good point. So Tom M says Qualcomm will also be reporting earnings on Wednesday. I think Intel too. So Intel is another company in the semiconductor sector reporting earnings, so please watch out for that. And I think the biggest thing to look for there, Tom, is I guess verbiage from the CEO and probably the chief operating officer as well, as to if they see inventory buildup in the semiconductor space. Because if there's an inventory buildup, that means a lot of the manufacturers across the United States and across the world really overestimated this global semiconductor shortage. I don't think that's going to be the case, but semiconductor stocks have been falling under a lot of pressure as of late, probably due to interest rates increasing across the board, especially that US 10-year Treasury yield. And now we are outside the Barclays building.
Not a problem. Stop fucking people. Stay with your fucking woman. Won't you go places?
Let's see. Hey, Dutchman says, Tom, talk about seniors on Social Security getting a 8.9% raise next year based on the CPI inflation. Yeah, I mean, I think inflation is going to hit people the most that are on a fixed income, right? So seniors that are living on a fixed income from Social Security, those are the people that really get hurt the most from inflation, and it's horrible. So one of the things that I've been proposing for a long time, and not to sound like a politician here, but I think one of the biggest things we could do to help our senior citizens is to say, once you start collecting Social Security, you should not have to pay property taxes on your primary residence. And I think that's fair. And let me know what you guys in the chat think about that, because if you're living on a fixed income, if you're living on Social Security and your drawdown of your retirement funds, let's say if you live on Long Island or in New Jersey, a place of extremely, extremely high taxes, how are you possibly going to afford to maintain your house if you have to pay a $10,000 to $20,000 property bill or a property tax bill every single year? It's just not going to happen. So I think one of the biggest things we could do as a society in the United States to help our seniors is to say, look, once you reach the age of retirement and start drawing down on Social Security, you no longer have to pay property taxes on your primary residence. But what do you guys think about that? I'd love to know your thoughts. Jay says that would be fantastic. Hey, check out this horse here. Cynthia Beal says, I think that is genius, Tom. T. Walsh says Prop 13. California was set up for that. This is T. Walsh. So T. Walsh, walk us through that, because I think one of the problems with California in relation to the cost of living, and I think you're seeing the same thing here in New York, is it's very hard to get building permits or a permit to build new properties. So the laws of supply and demand take into effect, and it seems like home prices in California continue to go up every year. Alejandro says, should I take my money out of crypto? I've been losing for a year. So I can't advise you on what to do. But in my portfolio, I take a portion of my income and allocate it to Bitcoin every month. I'm not really concerned about where the price is. I tend to hold Bitcoin as like a hedge should governments try to confiscate wealth, because Bitcoin is unconfiscatable. But if you guys want to learn a little bit more about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I had the pleasure of getting a press pass. So they gave my YouTube channel and my newsletter a press pass to the 2022 Bitcoin conference. And I actually was able to sit front and center when Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank was giving his keynote presentation, when Orlando Bravo, Michael Saylor. So I actually formulated a little bit of an article. So if you guys want to read my thoughts on Bitcoin from some of the wealthiest people in the world, if you type !news, NEWS, in the chat, it'll drop the link to the Behind the Street newsletter. And if you read the latest newsletter, it is all of my thoughts from the Bitcoin 2022 conference, where we were able to get a press pass. So very, very informative stuff there. Highly recommend you read that. Hey, 1-to-1 says, I want to move to Florida. Captain Super says, at the moment, 10 to 15% in cryptocurrency, subject to change, of course. Kim says, I live in California and it's ridiculous to live here. I own a few homes, live in one and rent it out. It's insane here. Yeah, so Kim, I think you have the right idea, right? In order to supplement your lifestyle in retirement, I think it's important for you to own real estate, because you can now turn your home into a profit center, right? I think it's important to think about your assets in a way, how do I make my assets generate free cash for myself? So Kim, I think you have the right idea by renting that out. I think you got the right idea. But Kim, what about your property taxes? You don't have to answer that if you don't want to, but I'd be curious to see what the property taxes are there. Yeah, XOXX Bob says, Tom, the homestead exemption. So I missed that this year, unfortunately, but I'm going to do that next year. I had to pay the full rack rate this year, unfortunately. Hey, Julie is here. Welcome, Julie. James says, are those real tulips? Yeah, they are. They're real. Hey, fourth quarter says, I read your newsletter. It was great. Thank you so much. Yeah, Kim says it's so important. So everybody, you know, I think it's good that we do these live streams, because not only do we get to hear from my perspective on things, we get to hear from perspectives of everybody in the chat. So to Kim's point, if you guys want to scroll back in the chat, notice what Kim said in the chat. She said it is critical that as you head towards retirement age, that you own real estate that can generate free cash flow for you to live off of during retirement, right? So think about that. What Kim is saying is, usually when you retire, you're probably going to be living off of some sort of fixed income, whether that is the yield from a bond or a money market account or something like that. But if you can turn your home into a profit center and either rent out one side of the house or rent out a couple of the rooms, that is going to provide you with much needed income to not only pay for your expenses, but maybe to even subsidize your property taxes. So Kim, I think that was fantastic that you shared that with us. That is awesome. Hey, Kim, says Tom, they are not really too bad with the property taxes. I pay $2,500 a year for a rental that has a half of an acre. That's actually really good, Kim. That's actually fantastic. You know, to give you an idea, I'm not sure how many Long Islanders we have in the chat, but if you were to buy a $500,000 house on Long Island, you're probably looking at a $10,000 to $12,000 property tax bill. Anything over $600,000, you're probably looking at $15,000 property tax bill. So it is getting crazy out there, my friends. Hey, Kenneth says, Tom, or you could use it to pay for a mortgage on a second investment property. Bingo. So Kenneth, you're talking more my speed, my friend. Love that. Wow, 1-to-1 says, Tom, I pay $15,000 in property taxes in central New Jersey. Oh my God. So I think, you know, to your point, 1-to-1, I think it's either New Jersey has the highest property taxes or it's Long Island. But I think Long Island may be a little bit worse. Hey, Phil says, not everybody is fortunate enough to have the money to buy multiple properties. I'm just glad we were able to refinance to a 15-year mortgage. We will have it paid off in our early 50s. Yeah, Phil, that's a good decision you made there, my friend. So, Phil, I'm sure you were able to finance at a refinance at a really low rate as well. So I think that was a great move that you did. NE says, Tom, Connecticut taxes are also bad. Yeah, Kim's like, holy moly, that's insane. Kenneth says $15,000. Oh my God, I just fell over. Yeah, so if you guys want to do, wow, Phil says 2.75%. Oh my God. Phil, that I think you probably timed like the very, very top of that rate market. I mean, or the bottom. That's, oh my God, 2.75%. Phil, that's fantastic. That's free money, man. That's awesome. So I think I got about a 3% interest rate when I bought my first investment property about 6 months ago. I can't believe it's 6 months ago already. But dang, Phil, 2.75% is fantastic, man. I mean, especially now that a 30-year fixed rate is above 5%. So you absolutely crushed it. Kudos to you. Yeah, we'll never see these rates again in my lifetime. My God. 1-to-1 says I refinanced my house for 1.875 in the summer of 2021. Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, that's free money right there. That's free money. Kenneth says Connecticut is not that bad, Tom. I pay like $3,000 for a 300K property, and it's on 2 acres. Yeah, that's not bad at all. That's fantastic. Hey, William St. Charles is here. What's up, William? Says, I am still amazed that you are only 26 years old with such broad mind on advanced topics. That effort, people who are twice your age. Hey, thank you. Well, I appreciate you joining in the conversation, my friend. So I'll give you guys some perspective here. So in Miami, Florida, my property tax bill, because I just paid it, was about $43.50, I believe. But here's where I made a mistake. Well, I guess it wasn't a mistake. I couldn't have. I missed the cutoff for signing up for the, what's it called? I missed the cutoff for the homestead exemption. So I had to pay the full rack rate. But next year, I should get that 50% deduction, or that 50% off the appraisal value of the house. So hopefully that'll knock the tax bill down a little bit. But to put that in perspective, I was looking at similar price properties on Long Island for an investment right around the $500,000 range, $400,000 to $500,000. and the property tax bills were all $12,000 and above. I mean, it was way, way too crazy. Hey, Robert Wiley says, I'm from Memphis and renting because you guys are buying up all the homes. So, Robert, are you talking about New Yorkers? Because I would assume, people from New York and California are moving to Tennessee like crazy. Hey, Cynthia Martinez says, instead of getting the exemption, people can just do their taxes in January. Interesting. Jay says, I don't get any homestead tax reduction at all. Hey, Kimberly is here. Says, Tom, you're back in New York. Good to see you. I think Kimberly is also from Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was either Chattanooga, Tennessee, or Memphis. NE says, Tom, growing up, the joke was always the big ballers live on the Gold Coast in Connecticut, because they were the only ones able to afford the houses and the cost of living there. Yeah, I mean, and you guys know this, I've been very open about it. One of the main reasons why I decided to buy my first property in Florida as opposed to New York and Long Island was because of the property tax bill. I'd much rather buy a home here and do business here. But I mean, the taxes are way too egregious. I mean, think about it. If you're paying $15,000 a year on your property, in 40 years, you've essentially bought a second home and you've eroded all your equity. I mean, that's not an investment. That's just ridiculous. But anyway, enough about that. So here we are, everybody. We are at the one and only Radio City. Well, not Radio City, Rockefeller Center. And instead of the ice skating rink, we actually have the one and only roller skating rink. Here we go. I think they did a great job here. Hey, fourth quarter says you're 26. Yes, I'm 26. Ruby Falcone says great view. Isn't this beautiful, Ruby? I think they did a really good job here, everybody. Samantha R is like, Tom, we ever go roller skating? We may do that next week. Yeah, T. Walsh says, Tom, owner-occupied on Long Island, get the benefit of decent public schools. That's true. I think some of the best public schools in the world are on Long Island, like Jericho. I think Jericho Public School District is one of the best in the nation, I think. But if you guys are enjoying the stream so far, feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We do these live walks and talks around New York City and Miami about 5 days a week, and we'd love for you guys to come and join us on the journey. Hey, Sally is here. Good to see you, Sally. This is a beautiful view, Tom. Dutchman says, yes, Tom, people from California are moving to Tennessee, and even Phoenix is full and short of housing. Yeah, so I think those were the hottest housing markets, right, of 2021 was some parts of Tennessee. Definitely Arizona was a big, big hot housing market. Whenever I think about Arizona, I always think about semiconductors, because if we think about, I think Intel is building a big chip fabricator right there in Arizona. And I believe, I forget the semiconductor company that agreed to invest over $1 billion in Ohio to build some chip fabricators as well. And one of the things about that, if you think about what goes into semiconductor manufacturing, it takes a ton of water. So Arizona is actually one of the states with the most advanced water treatment technologies in the entire United States. Because for chip fabricating, it takes an extreme amount of water, insane amount. And this is where they shoot the Today Show here. Penelope's is when I think about Arizona, I think about the lack of water. Yeah, I think it serves them very well, right? I think it serves them very well to have such advanced water recycling technology, for sure. Hey, Kimberly says people are buying houses here in Tennessee, sight unseen. My God. Well, hopefully that the increase in interest rates will sort of put a damper on things. Ooh, but everybody, could we do a quick time check in the chat? I think we've been streaming for over 2 hours, and we are going to make our way back to the Moynihan train station. So if we could just do a quick time check in the chat so I can make sure we are right on time for my train. Hey, we are. So 10:49, we're right on time. So here's one more look at Rockefeller Center, one of my favorite spots in the city. And now let's head back down to 34th Street. We'll check out the Empire State Building. And we'll make our way back to Moynihan Penn Station. Hey, NMAT says, Tom, how late does your train run? So the trains run 24/7 now. So we are back to, I guess you could call it pre-COVID levels. But trains are pretty good. They run about every hour. Hey, A Different Take is here. Hey, A Different Take is, I'm curious, can New York City really afford to reduce taxes with all the services and infrastructure in the city? I think so. The reason why the tax bills are so crazy here is because the MTA, the Long Island Railroad, and all that, they have very, very strong labor unions. And I'm not against being in a union at all, but that sort of stifles innovation, in my view, because you could have a ticket collector on the Long Island Railroad. I literally buy a ticket, a paper ticket. The guy comes around and punches it like it's, 1885, and they're making like $100,000 doing that, right? And I'm not knocking them or anything like that, but if you think about other developed countries like Japan, Korea, a lot of the trains are autonomous, right? They don't have many employees because a lot of this stuff can be automated. But the gist that I'm getting at is you don't need this many employees, government employees, to run things efficiently. I think we should spend that money upgrading the city's infrastructure and making it run autonomously. Some of the Japanese bullet trains run autonomously. Some of the trains in Korea, there's no conductors. The air train at JFK, there's no conductor, right? It runs on a time loop. If you look in Miami with the Metro Mover, a lot of those, or the Metro Mover does not have any conductor or any engineer. So I think that's just one very, very small piece of the puzzle. I could give about 10,000 other examples, but I think in New York, there's a lot of corruption, and across the United States, it's not just New York City. A lot of the cities across the United States are very, very corrupt, and I think a lot of the tax revenue goes right into the pockets of a lot of the politicians. Yeah, Namaste says unions. Abdullah, 1885. And look, that's not knocking anybody who works from the Long Island Railroad. My uncle works for the Long Island Railroad, but I think it comes to a point where we're like, this is a little bit ridiculous here. If we're having a guy, literally, I'm not sure if anybody's, been on the Long Island Railroad, but there's literally a guy that walks around and he's like, ticket, and he hole punches it like we're getting on the Polar Express. You don't need to do that anymore. And now it's gotten so crazy, they just look at the QR code on your phone. I mean, all of that could be automated, but it's not going to happen. It'll never happen in a city like New York. You know, I even think that a lot of the buses should be hard-lined into the street and run on a very fixed loop as well. No drivers. Everything runs like clockwork, autonomously. But I digress. Hey, Cosmo Scary is here. Good to see you, Cosmo. Hope you're well. Yeah, I'm not speaking ill of the unions, and for full transparency, I was in a union for many years. I was in Local 1101. So that was my labor union. We were the Communication Workers of America. So not knocking any unions at all. Hey, Pacific Desert Raid is here. Good to see you. This is hello, Tom, and everybody. Appreciate everybody joining tonight. So if you guys want to rewatch the stream, if you're just joining, we did a deep dive into a lot of the earnings reports. It's going to be a crazy week. Amazon is reporting, Alphabet is reporting, Microsoft is reporting. So this is the make or break week on Wall Street. You know, the S&P 500 is sitting well below its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. So if we do have a big miss this earnings season, you know, these indices could get hammered, and hammered pretty hard. Hey, a different takes is, what do you think about unionizing Amazon on Staten Island? Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit tonight. So I actually think Bernie Sanders is right here in New York, more specifically on Staten Island, because I think it was either one big warehouse in Staten Island they actually voted to unionize. And I think that it's going to go through. I think they're going to start to unionize. And there was a big rally this week. I think it may have been today. And Bernie Sanders was actually in town on Staten Island for that reason alone. And I think we're seeing this big push, not only at Amazon, but also Starbucks. And Howard Schultz, you know, whenever you think of Starbucks, you could think about Howard Schultz. But actually, the former CEO of Starbucks is Kevin Johnson. And Kevin Johnson actually didn't come into Starbucks from working in the services industry. He was actually a big tech guy at Microsoft. So Kevin Johnson, I think, was really brought into Starbucks because he has a very, very immersive background in technology, and he really helped build that mobile order and pay platform for Starbucks. So I think he did a good job there. Now that everybody wants to unionize at their stores, Howard Schultz is probably coming back to do some damage control, because Kevin Johnson has said multiple times, he's like, I think this is my time to retire. And I think he wants to retire. He just doesn't want to take the heat of these labor unions. And maybe Howard Schultz can come back and sort of massage things over. But we'll see. But what do you guys think about that? Hey, British Gray is here. Good to see you, British Gray. British Gray is joining us from the one and only Tampa, Florida. Hope you're well. Hey, Mike Skate TV says, man, I got to go back to New York City sometime. Good to see you, Mike. Hey, Matt Bob says, Kevin Johnson took the easy way out. I think he did too. But then again, I mean, I think he probably made a ridiculous amount of money at Microsoft, because if you think about it, he probably still has a ton of stock in Microsoft. And as of late, Microsoft was trading at all-time record highs. So I think he cashed out a lot of stock. I think he doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and I think he just wants to retire. Hey, Fascinating is here. Good to see you, Fascinating. Fascinating says, I love unions. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well, Fascinating. Yeah, Jerry's like, Tom, free soy lattes should calm everything down. You know, I'm not sure if anybody has ever read any of Howard Schultz's books, But if you are an aspiring entrepreneur or even just a business person in general, you gotta read Howard Schultz's books. They are fantastic. A real true American success story. And also Howard Schultz is local to New York. I believe Howard Schultz is a Brooklyn boy. Grew up in a very Jewish community in Brooklyn, New York, and became a screaming success. And many people don't know, Howard Schultz was actually, didn't start off his career at a coffee company. He actually started off his career at Xerox, being a Xerox salesman. So he would actually go door to door and knock on office buildings' doors selling copiers back in the day. So Howard Schultz is definitely a hustler. Hey, Dogman says, I was given a copy of Onward while working as a barista years ago. Great book. Cosmo Scary is like Tom's favorite place in New York City right here. Yeah, we gotta maneuver our way out of Times Square, Cosmo. Hey, Tish TV is here. Welcome, Tish TV. Sabrina Fair is here. Matthew says, what's up? Good to see you. WW is here. Oh, so everybody, speaking about Twitter, because Twitter is also reporting earnings today. I mean, not today, this week. There's a really good, if you want to learn more about the stock market, how to evaluate companies, I would highly suggest join a lot of the Twitter spaces. So if you want to follow me on Twitter at Walks Wall Street, there's one guy you gotta follow, and it's called Akram's Razor. So if you follow this Twitter account, Akram's Razor, he always puts on these Twitter spaces where a lot of big money managers on Wall Street will actually join in and start to talk about stocks, and anybody could jump in and voice their opinion on it. So if you want to learn more about that as a free resource, check it out. You could follow at Walks Wall Street. And 2 years ago, I actually appeared on the Razor's Edge podcast, which is a pretty big podcast about business and finance. And they had me on talking about the software sales market in New York City. So if you want to watch that, I was on the podcast about 2 years ago. It was called the Razor's Edge podcast. So yeah, follow Walks Wall Street on Twitter, and we'll see you guys in a lot of the chats. And I think you'll learn a lot for sure. And we'd love to have you join in the conversation. Alex Hill. I know, I was just about to say the same thing. Hey, Abdullah is here. Good to see you. Hey, Alejandro says, Tom, how do these social media companies come up with their valuation? I can only think of them creating value through ads. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's Meta's or Facebook's main source of revenue, right? Is selling advertising. Twitter's main source of revenue is advertising, although they do a horrible job of monetizing. But I think the enterprise value is really built through the network, right? So how much is an audience of 1 million people or 1 billion users? You know, how do you value that, right? Is it from a subscription standpoint, or is the value just in the network? Does the network really have to generate any revenue for it to be worth something? And I think that has really come to the forefront with an as-a-service business or a SaaS business. So I think it's a really good question. Hey, I see Joe C here. What's up, Joe C? Always a pleasure to see you. Cynthia Beal is here. I haven't seen Joe C in a long time, so it's good to see you, Joe C. We're headed back to 34th Street, Penn Station. Hey, Melissa White says, good evening, bro. Good to see you, Melissa White. Always a pleasure. We're right outside of the New York City Police Department. Old Tape Archives says, Tom, do you see the Dow going below 30,000 this year? I think it's definitely possible. especially if we get big earnings misses by the major tech companies. You know, I would actually like to see the S&P 500 make another low here. I mean, the NASDAQ has already made another low. Because if we think about where interest rates are going, one way higher, a lot of the interest rate sensitive stocks like these SaaS companies or as a service, these things are really getting hammered here. And I think it's very possible for the Dow to go below 30,000. But I think, you know, ExxonMobil and Chevron are two major Dow components, and they're also reporting earnings this week. So Chevron, ExxonMobil are going to report this week. Hey, Diego says good night. Good to see you, Diego. Tish TV is here. Welcome. Mike C says, what makes a product SaaS versus just cloud subscription service? Yeah, so I think SaaS, or the acronym software as a service, could really be applied to anything that's just a subscription or reoccurring revenue. Right, so you could have something that's MRR, which is monthly reoccurring revenue, and you could also have ARR, which is annualized reoccurring revenue. Hold on, let me cross the street here. But yeah, there's a lot of, I think Office 365, or maybe 365, is a SaaS product. You know, and it's funny, many analysts on Wall Street are actually projecting a deceleration in growth for Office 365. But I think we could actually have a surprise beat for Office 365, because if you think about it, if we look at a lot of these companies like Paychex, a lot of these payroll processing companies, they've actually been having really good earnings reports. So what does that mean? That means companies are adding more employees to the payroll. And if you're adding more employees to the payroll, you know, they're going to need an email server. You know, they're going to need PowerPoint. They're going to need, you know, all the tools of the Office suite. So as employment numbers are going up, or payroll numbers are going up, I think that demand for Office 365 is probably going to stay pretty good. But I mean, that's just my view. Mike C says, why would somebody drop Office 365? Are there other alternatives? So there are other alternatives, but I personally use all Microsoft products across the board. I even use Microsoft Teams. Does anybody in the chat use Microsoft Teams by chance? Hey, Diego's here. Old Tape Archive, good to see you. Let me see how much battery I have. Not much. We're about 10%. Hey, Connie, says Tom, a lot of companies are using cloud software and VPN for employees to log in and use when they need to, not per seat. Ooh, that's a really good comment. Connie says, Tom, I don't like Teams, but it is powerful stuff. And there's more than just meetings. Yeah, so I mean, I think Teams has been growing on me. Just as long as we don't use Cisco WebEx, I'm good. If there's any time somebody is proposing to jump on a WebEx meeting, I refuse. I'll either say, look, it has to be any other platform. I'll even write you back and forth via snail mail. I'll write you a letter before I'll jump on a WebEx call. I've had horrible experience with WebEx. Hey, oh my, this is Teams is very popular with government contractors. Very cool. Hey, WW, thank you so much for the donation. You are too kind. It's been a while. Just wanted to say I love the videos and your streams, and you inspire me. Keep it up, Tom. Thank you so much. WW, you're the best. You're way too kind. So thank you for the support, WW. But everybody, it's come to that time in the stream where we have to say goodbye. I know. Hold back the tears, my friends, but here's the good news. The good news is that it's earnings season, and that means we are going to be streaming every day. And I will see you all tomorrow. So if you're new here, everybody, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are new. I really do appreciate you coming on this beautiful walk with me tonight throughout the greatest city in the world. I will be sending out the Behind the Street newsletter on Tuesday after the market closes. So if you have not signed up for the Behind the Street newsletter yet, please do. We'd love to see you over there. So thank you to all of our moderators. Everybody have a great week. It's going to be a fantastic, fantastic week. I'll leave you off with the QR code here. So if you want to scan the QR code with your mobile device, it will bring you to the screen where you could sign up for free the Behind the Street newsletter, which is a free financial newsletter where we talk about not only the U.S. equities markets, but emerging markets as well, currencies and cryptocurrencies. So please scan, join us, and we'll say our goodbyes, and we'll get ready for a crazy week of earnings. So Sabrina Fair, thank you so much. Mike C, much appreciated. Al Berg, Samantha R, John Kennedy, much appreciated. My good moderator, Ruby Falcone, have a fantastic Monday. Brian, Pacific Desert Raid, Andy from South Korea, Marilyn Faith, fascinating. Cynthia Martinez from the 305, NMAT, Robert Wiley, Dutchman, Muhammad B, Eyeglass Lady, Pacific Desert Raid, Marilyn, Otto, thank you so much, everybody. Jay, much appreciated. Lodi, Connie, and anybody that I missed. Cosmos Scary, Out and About, FredX, Gary, and to the Mighty Bull, have a good night wherever you are, because there is always a bull market somewhere, and you guys just need to know where to look. And British Gray, we'll see you guys in the next one. Make it a great week. Best of luck tomorrow.